Crimson Rivers, A Bad Day. Dorcas's breath catches the moment she lays eyes on Marlene, who immediately meets Sirius in a tight hug. She looks, well, frankly, she looks like the polar opposite of a Hallow in ripped jean shorts and a loose black t-shirt with the sides cut off all the way down to the hem, showing her bare sides and the dark sports bra underneath. It reveals the muscles in her arms, in her legs, and her golden hair is piled into a lopsided, messy bun on top of her head. There's dirt under her fingernails, and the random, yellowing bruise in various spots on her legs and arms, like she's active, like she's vivacious, like she's doing things a little too rough and doesn't plan to stop. Back in the Hallow, people would see her like this and scoff. They would call her poor, despite the fact that she's not. She can't be, as a victor. They would call her messy, or thrown away, or something equally insulting. Meanwhile, Dorcas nearly chokes when she inhales her own spit, because she'll be damned if that is not the most attractive woman she's ever seen in her fucking life. Holy shit, that's not even fair. Oh, this does not look good for Dorcas, not at all. She hasn't seen Marlene in 6 months, basically, and she told herself she was going to keep her wits about her and be normal when meeting her again. But one glance at Marlene, looking like she just rolled out of bed and did some manual labor, lets Dorcas know she is going to fail miserably. Sirius and Marlene murmur to each other off to the side, while Pandora, Regulus, and James meet the mayor, and Dorcas stands back, her heart racing as she waits for Marlene to notice her, while debating if she should run and hide on the train before that ever happens. There is a point where Pandora is clearly entertaining the mayor the most, which frees James and Regulus to go to Sirius and Marlene, when Sirius raises his hand and waves them over. Hello, James says softly, more meek than Dorcas has ever seen him. His shoulders are hunched forward, and he doesn't seem able to look Marlene directly in the eyes. Not for the first time, Dorcas's mind turns to Vanity and Hodge, and James's heartbreaking involvement in their respective last moments. This is clearly hard for him, just being around Marlene, their mentor, and the guilt practically drips off of him from all over. It's clearly not very easy for Marlene either, because something passes through her eyes when she looks at him, and for a brief moment her jaw clenches and her fingers twitch at her sides, like she's considering doing something violent. In the end, Marlene exhales and looks at Sirius, who nods gently, and then Marlene steps forward and holds her hand out to James. Hello, nice to meet you. It's very stiff and awkward between them, but James does reach out to shake her hand. It's over quickly, and maybe that's for the best, because Regulus is starting to look twitchy. He gets like that, Dorcas has noticed. Anything he perceives as a threat makes him restless, and do not let it be a threat he feels is directed towards James or Sirius, because then things are in high chances of going from bad to worse. Dorcas has never seen a more hostile, dangerous group of people in her life. Because Dorcas gets things done, and she can see that this is very hard for Marlene and James specifically, she sweeps forward and says, What, no hello for me, Marlene? Marlene's head whips towards her, finally realizing she's there, and she stands taller immediately. Her fingers twitch again, but this time Dorcas is quite sure it's not because she wishes to do anything violent. Dorcas! In the flesh, Dorcas muses, stopping just short of Marlene and wondering if it would be too much if she went in for a hug. Friends hug, don't they? Oh, fuck it. Despite knowing it's an incredibly bad idea, Dorcas steps forward and holds out her arms in offering, leaning in and fully preparing for it to be awkward or awful, or for Marlene to dodge her entirely. Marlene does not, and it isn't awkward or awful. In fact, Marlene meets her halfway, and it's wonderful. Dorcas is very close to Marlene's height, only a teensy bit taller, so they sort of just match somehow. Or maybe that's just how it feels to Dorcas. Either way, wrapping her arms around Marlene is the most natural thing in the world, so fucking right that the idea of letting go feels wrong. Marlene smells warm, like sunshine and motor oil for some reason. It's good, something homely and foreign all at once. I didn't expect to see you, Marlene says quietly when they break apart, much to Dorcas's internal dismay. I wasn't sure if the stylists travel on the Victory Tour. I had the free time, Dorcas murmurs. Marlene clears her throat and nods, Well, I'm glad. It's good to see you again. I wanted to. I actually came to see you off. Before you left the Hallow, Dorcas blurts out, her heart lurching forward in her chest with a low keen when she sees Marlene's eyes light up with surprise. I was going to say goodbye, but I waited too long and showed up too late, is all. Maybe don't wait next time, yeah? Marlene teases, breaking out into a broad grin that maybe makes Dorcas's knees go all wobbly. Whatever, it's completely fine. I won't, Dorcas says, and she hopes it's not a lie, because even though they can't be anything, she can't resist wanting to keep Marlene in her life, even at a distance. Pandora comes bustling over and gathers everyone up, ushering them along with the mayor of District 11, a kind woman who leads them to a room with refreshments and snacks, but not a full meal. There's no need, seeing as 12 fed them all, but each district is required to provide drinks and at least some food options for the victors during the tour. Dorcas is only just now learning firsthand how cruel that is, especially in districts where poverty is more prominent. Of course, various people at the Phoenix who escaped from districts have talked to her about these things before, but it's one thing to hear about it and another to see it. The mayor ends up getting on well with Pandora and James, who sticks with her and seems desperate to avoid Marlene at all costs. Regulus unsurprisingly hovers around Sirius like his personal shadow. He does that a lot, too, Dorcas has noticed. Just gravitates towards his brother without even seeming to realize it, like an instinctive thing. When he doesn't, Sirius looks for him, never fully settling until he knows where his little brother is and what he's doing. Sometimes it sort of breaks Dorcas's heart, honestly. It's just that it's blatantly a familial thing, just checking in with the person you're comfortable with in only the way family can be, but it's mixed with something else, too. A constant, unending undercurrent of worry, needing the reassurance that the other is there, that they're close by, that they're safe. Marlene spends time with Sirius and Regulus because he's hovering, while Dorcas sticks with James, Pandora, and the kind mayor. If Mayor Matilda notices that more than a few people are avoiding each other, James and Marlene, James and Regulus, Dorcas and Marlene, then she doesn't mention it or seem to mind. Genuinely, she is a very nice woman. It's not that Dorcas particularly wants to avoid Marlene, mind you. It's just that doing so is for the best. She's thankful just to get to see her, though, to lay eyes on her once again and know that she's okay. Just that is enough. It has to be. At some point, Pandora and James get into a very deep, very convoluted conversation with Mayor Matilda about types of soil, a shared interest among them, apparently, and Dorcas slowly inches away and sneaks off, because she genuinely has no idea what they're fucking talking about. She slips off, instead, out the side door that Mayor Matilda ever so kindly informed her earlier she could use to take a smoke break if she wanted. Dorcas does, in fact, want. She only gets through one half of her cigarette before the door opens and Marlene walks out, which honestly shouldn't be a surprise. Somehow it is. Somehow it startles Dorcas that Marlene would join her, would seek her out, would be at ease with her enough to purposefully spend time with her. She doesn't know why that's so shocking, here in Marlene's home district, but compared to the Hallow, it is. This is where Marlene is from, where she grew up. And Dorcas is just a girl from the Hallow, a place that takes the saying, all that glitters is not gold, to the next level. A growing cesspool of despair and rot that hides within pretty smiles and pretty jewels. This, here, is real beauty. Marlene is real beauty. Long day? Marlene asks slightly, coming to lean against the rail of the porch beside her. It's barely started, Dorcas says with a sigh. We have to go all the way to District 9 today. 8, 7, 5, and 4 the second day, 3, 2, 1, and then into the Hallow on the third day, where I'll have very little time to get James and Regulus ready for their interview. Didn't you volunteer to be along for the ride? Marlene asks in faint amusement, arching an eyebrow. Dorcas makes a ch noise and takes another pull on her cigarette, blowing smoke lazily towards the sky with her head tipped back. Yes, I did, but let me grumble in peace. As you like, Marlene murmurs, lips twitching. How have you been? Dorcas asks, watching her curiously, helplessly wanting to know every little thing about her. Marlene takes a deep breath, then blows it out and rolls her shoulders in a lazy shrug. Oh, same old thing, just a different day. I've been helping my dad at the factory lately. He works with most of the other men in the district to build engines and other such things, usually for the Hallow. My cousin just recently had a baby. Cute little thing, but my mom's been an emotional wreck because I never hold him. I, painted Mrs. Chevelik's house. She's Hodge's mother, and now she brings me peanut brittle every week. Is it good? Dorcas asks, because that's the first thing that falls out of her mouth. It's absolutely awful, Marlene announces, and they stare at each other for a beat before breaking out into laughter. No, I'm not joking, Dorcas. It's genuinely so bad. I hate it, anyway, because it gets in my teeth, and I despise anything tasting even faintly of caramel. But I eat it with a smile every time. It makes her so happy, and it was Hodge's favorite, so I I think she appreciates having a reason to make it. Dorcas isn't laughing anymore, and neither is Marlene. That sits between them, heavy. And then Dorcas looks away as she swallows down the lump in her throat. Why don't you ever hold a baby? Maximus is a calm baby, don't get me wrong, but I don't know, he's small, and I'm not. Marlene halts, then clears her throat. Well, like I told you, I don't always know how to be gentle. You do, Dorcas murmurs. You're capable of being gentle, Marlene. You eat peanut brittle that you hate just to make a mother happy, and if that's not gentle, I don't know what is. Sometimes, Marlene whispers, being gentle is a chore. Yeah, Dorcas replies, remembering the way Slughorn's face felt under her fingers when she dug her nails in. Yeah, it can be, she sighs. And the factory? Do you enjoy it? It's hot, and it's grueling, but it's satisfying, Marlene muses, and Dorcas hums to encourage Marlene to continue, taking another puff of her cigarette as she listens. Most of it is mindless work. Once you know the whole process and figure out how to work the machines, it's I can waste entire days in there, not even thinking the entire time. Can be a bit dangerous sometimes, though. I actually nearly cut my finger off last month. Look, see. Fuck's sake, Marlene, Dorcas says in exasperation as Marlene shoves her hand in Dorcas's face and shows off the scar on the outside of her thumb. Marlene grins at her, all teeth. Stitched it myself, then went right back to work. Idiot, Dorcas mutters fondly, shaking her head as she blows out some more smoke, pointing it away from Marlene. I don't like looking at the scar, though, Marlene admits, peering down at her thumb with a frown. It healed all wonky, so it looks weird to me, and it also makes me feel stupid when I look at it, because technically it was my fault, but you didn't hear me say that. If my dad asks, I was not nodding off while running the compactor. Deal? You fell asleep? Listen. Dorcas wheezes out an incredulous laugh and starts coughing, the smoke building in her lungs when she doesn't exhale it fast enough. She coughs her way through it, catches her breath, then says, I don't even want to hear it. Be more careful while handling heavy machinery, Marlene. You sound like my mother. Marlene's face scrunches a beat later. Oh, I hate that I just said that. No, me too, Dorcas assures her, then grins when Marlene wrinkles her nose in further distaste. But at least your mother sounds like a sensible woman. She's not. She's easily frazzled and has no idea what's going on at any given moment, Marlene corrects, her eyes softening with unbridled love. She just feels a lot, if that makes sense. Not a thought behind her eyes, really, but in the best way. She's all heart. Mental as she is, I love her dearly. Sounds like Sybil, Dorcas thinks, biting back the words before they fall recklessly from her mouth. She sounds lovely. Mm-hmm. Marlene pokes at her thumb again, sighing. She sends me off with a band-aid every day like I'm a fucking toddler, because she knows the scar agitates me. I told her I'd lose it within an hour, and she still does it anyway. I hate that she wastes them like that, though. I'm going to have to think of something, or else she'll just use them all. Dorcas regards her for a long moment, then finishes off her cigarette. As she blows the last exhale of smoke, she tugs the ring off her left thumb, a simple silver one with black engravings all the way around. and then she steps forward to wriggle it on Marlene's thumb, pushing it down where it fits perfectly over her scar, save for one tiny portion that peeks out just a bit above the ring. What about that? Does that suffice? Oh, Dorcas, I can't take that. It's yours. It's... Shut up. It covers it, doesn't it? Does it work for you? Marlene stares down at it for a bit, then glances up and meets Dorcas's eyes. Softly, she says, You know, it really does. Well, there you go, Dorcas murmurs, feeling her heart twist around vibrantly in her chest, just thinking about the fact that Marlene will have it, will keep it, will wear it and have a bit of Dorcas with her always. Maybe she'll think of Dorcas every time she rubs her finger over it. You didn't have to do that, Marlene whispers. Dorcas swallows. What are friends for, right? Marlene sways closer, and only now does Dorcas realize how close they actually are, and it's too late to do anything about it because Marlene is kissing her. Just like that. Friends. Yeah, they've got this friend thing down really well, don't they? Dorcas kisses her back, and it's not because she's used to kissing Marlene back, but because she can't stop herself from doing it. She shouldn't, she knows better, and she still can't help it. Marlene's mouth is a line of heat against hers, pressing in and peeling her lips apart, not gentle or teasing at all. It's not as if Dorcas is sinking into it, getting lost, but rather like she's resurfacing, like she's coming alive. Like this, none of her responsibilities matter. She doesn't know about the war, care about the danger, or think about the risks. It's just Marlene's mouth against hers, Marlene's tongue swiping into the seam of her mouth desperately, eagerly, like she wants it so very much. Oh, but so does Dorcas. When Marlene's hand cradles her cheek, Dorcas can feel the cool line of the ring on her thumb against the heat of her skin. And you? Marlene breathes out, pulling back to gaze at her with bright eyes and a swollen mouth. How have you been? It all comes crashing back down on Dorcas then, seeping in like a pipe just burst. A room filling with water, but there's no windows and no exit. I've been awful, full of grief for those that are gone that I'm partially to blame for. I've been preparing for war. I've been lost, lost, lost. I've been thinking of you. Oh, you know, same old thing, just a different day, Dorcas croaks, licking her lips before carefully pulling away from Marlene and shakily fumbling for another cigarette. Marlene waits for Dorcas to continue, to give her more, but Dorcas doesn't. Dorcas can't. Marlene looks down and twists the ring around her finger, and they don't say anything else. Despite everything, the silence is comfortable. It usually is between friends. Things go awry the moment James is on the stage and lays eyes on Vanity's family. The thing is, this was difficult to do in District 12, and James didn't even fucking speak to those tributes, not once. Just seeing their families on the two platforms towards the back of the crowd, standing front and center, had hurt him. It's cruelty at its finest, making those people who have lost their loved ones stand up and face the people that lived. It's particularly devastating when James did know the fallen tributes. He knew Vanity. He spoke to her, laughed with her, did everything he could to protect her, and he lived, and she didn't. And Hodge? Well, not only did James live, but he also killed him. He is the reason that Hodge is dead, and it doesn't matter if it was an accident, doesn't matter if he likely wouldn't have made it to the end anyway. None of that matters, surely not to the people who wanted Hodge to come home to them. Vanity's mother, father, and 3 siblings, Devon, Curio, and Hoosier, stand in tribute to her. Her siblings are all younger. 2 of them are twins, and Curio resembles Vanity the most. James looks at all of them, and he feels like he's going to crumble into dust, like he's caving in from the inside out. The only person standing in tribute for Hodge is who James presumes is his mother, a frightfully young woman, can't be more than 10 years older than James, which means she had Hodge quite young, and it also means she has a lot of life left to live without her son. There is no father or other siblings. She is crying before a word is spoken. James does, in fact, have the speech he's meant to give memorized, as does Regulus. The issue is James is stuck. Behind the families are large screens displaying the tribute profile. So there Vanity is, there Hodges, looking right at him with clear, innocent eyes. He has forgotten what they actually look like, because they are dead and vengeful when he sees them in his nightmares. But like this, nothing but a memory on a banner, they are young and bright, still dead anyway. Regulus is squeezing James's hand almost to a violent point, and James knows. He knows, okay? He knows that he needs to speak. He knows that he needs to start the speech. Thank you, District 11, for the warm welcome. We are delighted to be here. The tributes who hailed from here upheld all that you stand for with integrity and respect. You have every right to be proud of. But that's the thing, isn't it? Vanity and Hod weren't representatives for their districts, not really. Sure, that's what the Hallow likes to perpetuate to further dehumanize them, but that's not it. Vanity and Hodge were children that had their future stolen from them. And James, one of the thieves. Their families are not proud. What is there to be proud of? What happened was not noble. It was a tragedy. James's voice sticks in his throat, and that one sound echoes out across the dead silent crowd. Regulus is strangling his hand at this point. James can feel pressure building in his chest, in his head, and Hodge's mother is weeping silently. Curio has Vanity's eyes. James, Regulus whispers, speaking low, intimate, trying to keep him on track. James releases a strangled noise, and, for the very first time in his life, he pulls away from Regulus. He quite literally just snatches his hand from Regulus's grip and shuffles away from him, getting closer to the microphone as words start spilling out of him in a rush that he can't figure out how to stop. "I'm sorry," James chokes out, looking right at Hodge's mother, forcing himself to witness her grief, knowing he's the cause of it. I'm so sorry. I know that I can't make up for the loss of your children, because nothing will ever make up for it. They were too young, and it was not fair. Hodge was just scared. He was scared and trying to survive, and it's not fair that he didn't. He should have never been there. He should have never been forced into that arena. I didn't mean to push him. I never wanted to hurt him. I'm sorry. He didn't deserve that. Not any of it. I carry my regret with me every day, but I know it pales in comparison to your grief. I would give anything for him to be 15. Hodge's mother reaches up to cover her mouth, her eyes squeezing shut as tears spill steadily down her cheeks. She never makes a sound. Behind her, on the screen, Hodge smiles. And Vanity, James's eyes burn as he looks to her family, unable to speak for a moment from the surge of emotion that suffocates him. Curio has Vanity's eyes, and they're full of tears. She wasn't just a fellow tribute, not to me. I tried to protect her, and I failed, and I'm sorry. She was incredibly intelligent and so bright, and I miss her. Every time I see a bug, I miss her. Every day I miss her. She deserves better, and I'm sorry she didn't get it. I'm sorry I couldn't save her. She should have gotten to live, to grow up, and what happened to her was wrong. She was so young, and she... James can't finish, can't figure out where it ends, because all of it is so unfair and so fucked up, and he's crying too hard to locate the words that deserve to be spoken for Vanity and Hodge, words that won't even bring them back, words that wouldn't have kept them going in the first place. Maybe it doesn't matter, because Regulus is suddenly right there, tugging James away from the microphone and basically shoving his head down in the crook of his neck. James slumps against him and hides there, weeping, barely hearing the calm, steady words that fall out of Regulus's mouth. Something about James's guilt, his grief, the flimsy cover for all that James has said already, for all the ways in which James has just spoken out of turn, gone off script, brought them closer to danger in his need to do what's right. James is crying, and he doesn't know when he is. It feels like Vanity and Hodge have just died, and the world is crumbling down around him again. Time warps around him, and he's not wearing his glasses, and Regulus is whispering in his ear, as he ushers him off the stage, out of sight. In the distance, faint and background, the previously silent crowd are chanting, over and over, "Hallow is hollow." James is not doing well. He's rattling against Regulus and crying so hard that he's not breathing properly. He's not keeping it together, and Regulus doesn't know how to help. Regulus's skin is crawling because James is pressed up against him, and he hates feeling this way. For James, he tolerates it. "Sirius! Sirius!" Regulus hisses frantically, feeling helpless and inadequate, mindlessly rubbing James's back as he stares over at his brother desperately. Unfortunately, Sirius is discussing damage control with Mayor Matilda, offering advice as her district continues to get more and more restless and rowdy by the second. According to Mayor Matilda, there has never been issues between those in the district and the Oars, but the growing dissent is a cause for concern. Sirius and Pandora are talking with Mayor Matilda to basically coach her on how to best handle the situation, no doubt trying to cover up and smooth over how severely James just fucked up. The thing is, Regulus doesn't even blame James. He can't blame James. Vanity was too young, and so was Hodge, and everything they went through wasn't fair. They should have never been there. They should have never died. Regulus isn't angry. He is scared, though. There is a chance that James just brought trouble down on their heads, even though Regulus did his absolute best to fix it. He tried. He really tried, despite the fact that it made him hate himself more. He should have stood by James, regardless of fear, regardless of consequences. James deserves someone who would stand by him through anything, no matter what. James makes a sort of weak, helpless noise against Regulus, a fucking wreck from head to toe, and Regulus responds to his distress like he's preparing for battle. He wants to fight it, whatever it is that's upsetting James, but he can't. This isn't something he can kill, and it leaves him feeling lost and useless and terribly out of his depth. "Sirius!" Regulus calls, louder and more frantic this time. That, thankfully, snatches Sirius's attention immediately. He abandons Mayor Matilda with Pandora in less than a second, which doesn't seem to matter anyway, because seconds later, Mayor Matilda is quickly ushering off to the stage to address her district and calm them again. "Okay, hey," Sirius says, his voice soft as he stops next to them and carefully reaches out to put his hand on James's shoulder, tucking his head closer to him. "James, listen to me. I need you to listen to me, all right? You're in District 11. It's 6 months after the Hunger Games. You're not in the arena. You're on the victory tour." This does not seem to matter to James. He doesn't calm down. "We're going back to the train," Sirius declares, lifting his head and meeting Regulus's gaze. "Now. We need to go now. We need to get him away. Keep a firm hold on him." "Keep a what? Sirius, what?" Regulus blurts out. "Just trust me," Sirius grits out. "Come on." And so they go. Sirius calls something to Pandora, who is apparently staying behind for a bit to speak to Mayor Matilda again. On the way out, they pass Dorcas and Marlene, who watch them go by with wide eyes. Marlene is looking right at James, all traces of lingering anger non-existent. There's respect there, in her gaze, as well as shock. There's something in Dorcas's eyes that Regulus can't put a name to, something strangely calculating, but he doesn't have the time or the focus to figure out what it means. About halfway to the train, Regulus understands what Sirius meant about keeping a firm grip on James. With no warning whatsoever, James just loses it. He goes from sobbing to lashing out like his life depends on it, fighting against them and trying to get away. Sirius curses and starts dragging James along faster, making Regulus rush to keep up. They don't let go until they're on the train, and as soon as they have, Sirius is pushing Regulus back so they give James a wide berth. He's like a bull unleashed in a figurine shop, dazed and confused and crashing into things. Everything he bumps into, he shoves away from him, breaking things and knocking them over. Sirius continues to steadily push Regulus back every time James swings out in their vicinity, and Regulus peers around his shoulder, his heart lodged in his throat. It's bad. Very fucking bad. Regulus can tell that James is out of touch with reality, with time right now. He doesn't think James knows where he is or who is with him. Multiple times he says Regulus's name, He goes on a tangent about looking for his hatchet, chanting, "Where is it? Where is it? Where is it?" He starts looking for it, and at one point he legitimately just tips the table in the middle of the train car over, sending dishes clattering and shattering on the floor. Regulus feels small. He isn't sure why exactly. Maybe it's because Sirius is standing in front of him, one arm reaching back to keep Regulus there, shielded, like there's a threat in the room with them. There is. It's just James, and yet there is. It ends when James's leg gives out. There's no warning for that either. James's leg just abruptly buckles, sending him right to the floor, thankfully not in a pile of glass. As soon as James is down, he drags himself back against the wall of the train car and curls into himself, hunched down and eerily quiet. Sirius peels away from Regulus to go to James, kneeling just out of range, murmuring low to him. Again he tells James where he is, when he is, and what he's doing. He assures James that he is not in the arena. He does it again and again until James finally responds. Slowly, stiltedly, Sirius coaxes James out of the corner and to his feet, keeping him steady as he limps. James takes one look at Regulus and immediately starts crying again. Regulus can only stand there, feeling numb, as Sirius leads James out of the compartment, towards where they're sleeping in their own separate train cars, or where they will when they're traveling through the next 2 nights. Hands shaking, Regulus moves over to pick up the table. His mind is blank, and his eyes are burning. Time passes. He's not sure how much, but he moves around to clean up what bit of the mess he can. It's like a tornado came through, but it was just James. Regulus feels like he's going to be sick. He remembers in the arena saying that he didn't want James to be changed. Looking back now, he realizes how naive that desire was, how unfair it was to a degree, even though he couldn't help it. He was so in love, even then. I loved you there, he thinks. I love you here, he thinks, as he picks up glass. Sirius eventually comes back, alone. He sees Regulus cleaning up, takes a deep breath, then moves over to help. They're silent for a long time, but it's Sirius who speaks first. I knew this was going to be hard for him, Sirius whispers, squeezing his eyes shut. This district specifically. Hard for you, too, no doubt, but I didn't know how to fix it. I don't think this is something I could have ever fixed. You helped him, Regulus murmurs, swallowing thickly. His chest feels too small to contain all he is inside it. You knew exactly what to do. That's more than I did. Don't do that, Reggie, Sirius says softly, looking as exhausted as Regulus feels. Regulus can feel his eyes itching, his breath shaking in the walls of his throat. I didn't even know I'm assuming that this is fairly common, since you were so familiar with it. It's not always this bad, Sirius tells him quietly. It's worse when he's having a bad day. Most of the time, when he can't figure out when he is, he's sort of calm. The first time was when he discovered the hatchet outside. He thought he was back in the arena, got confused and scared, nearly took my fucking head off. But it gets better with time. Less and less the further away from the arena you get. These things pass, eventually, for the most part. It will for you, too. But it never goes away, Regulus whispers. Not completely. Sirius sighs. No, it doesn't. I wasn't there for him. I wasn't there for you, and I haven't been there for him, Regulus croaks, feeling his throat lurch with that reality, because it's true, and this time he chose it. Stop it, Sirius orders firmly, holding his gaze. I didn't let you be there for me, mostly because I didn't know how, and I was scared. It's done, all right? You're here for me now, and that means something. And even if you weren't here for me, if you couldn't be, that would be fine. We're okay. We're always going to be okay, me and you, no matter what. I should have been there for you, Regulus insists. Yes, well, I shouldn't have left you behind, Sirius replies, and Regulus deflates a little, feeling like an exposed nerve, tender and raw. We both have things we regret, and we both wish we could have done things differently than we did, but we're here now anyway. That's enough, isn't it? For me, it is. Yes, it's enough, Regulus says softly, staring down at his hands, at the broken teacup lying in his palms. But James, I haven't. He deserves more. He deserves better. You know, Sirius croaks, Remus taught me something very important about what it is to give anyone anything. He can't bring me flowers every day. He can't sleep with me at night and hold me through the nightmares. He can't be with me where anyone can see. He has no possessions, nothing he owns, and even his time isn't his to freely give. He can't give me anything, and yet he has given me something that no one else ever has. All that anyone else could offer is meaningless because they're not him, and that, simply that Remus is the one I love, outshines anything else. Has it ever crossed your mind to think that maybe, just maybe, you give James what no one else can by just being you? It's not about what I can give him. It's about how I will do it, Regulus says. I don't know how. I can barely stand to be touched, and I can't even fucking shower, and I ask for too much while always giving so little, and I'm scared. I'm so serious. I'm so scared. It's okay, Reggie. It's okay. Sirius cuts in quickly, shuffling over to gently pluck the glass out of his hands, which is for the best because Regulus was unconsciously curling his fingers around the shards, dangerously close to drawing blood, and then all of this would have gotten so much worse. Listen to me. You're not required to do anything with James. Not ever. All of this acting for the Hallows is one thing, but the truth behind it is something else. Stop putting so much pressure on yourself, okay? James isn't. He doesn't expect anything from you. If you're ready someday, then brilliant. If you're not, if you never are, then that's a tragedy, yes, but it's not your fault, or his. I want to love him right, Regulus chokes out, and I don't know if I'll ever be able to. He thinks he could have, once, but that was a long time ago. They find out, by the time they get to District 10, that the live feed for the tour was cut right at the end of Regulus's speech, smoothing over James's mistake, so no one watching saw the entire district come very close to a riot before their mayor stepped on stage and calmed them all down. District 10 was easier, admittedly, because again, James and Regulus never interacted with the tributes. They stood on stage, held hands, and gave their speeches like what happened before in District 11 never actually did. It felt hollow in the aftermath, James thought. All those people, all those gazes latched right onto him and Regulus. Somehow they felt accusing, even demanding. James feels a deep sense of moral obligation to do more, to say more, to address the fact that all of those people didn't deserve to die, to call attention to the fact that the Hallow is in the wrong. But he can't. In retrospect, James realizes how big of a mistake it was to lose it like that in District 11. It hits him later, but his parents are still in danger if he fucks this up. Sirius and Regulus, too. Their parents. Anyone they all care about. By the time they reach District 9, James feels like an empty shell, scraped out with painful grooves on the inside of his chest cavity. It's not helping that he and Regulus have to present themselves as a couple on camera, holding hands and standing close, sharing looks and warm smiles. It's all fake. It's all meaningless, as hollow as everything else. When the cameras aren't on, Regulus will barely have anything to do with him, won't talk to him, won't look at him. After he lost it on the train, James can't blame him, even if it hurts. It's not something James is proud of when he gets that bad. It scares him, honestly, and leaves him a nervous wreck after the fact. He doesn't mean for it to happen, and he can't stop it. The very first time, he swung a hatchet at Sirius and pretty much instantly had a panic attack as soon as he realized what he'd done. For 3 days, he wouldn't let Sirius near him. He shied away from his own parents, but Sirius had a really bad nightmare one night that had James calming him down, reassuring him that the hallucinations weren't real, holding him through his lashing out. That sort of reminded James that it's not his fault, because it's not Sirius's fault. It's an exchange, the way they take care of each other, the way they look out for one another. James has taken hits from Sirius that brought tears to his eyes from how much it hurt, and he never let that stop him from going back to take care of him when he needed it. So James let Sirius take care of him too, because he does need it. Sometimes he needs it more than he knows how to handle. But Regulus? Well, he's never seen that. Something James has been secretly grateful for. James knows it's a bit hypocritical of him to be ashamed, considering he doesn't fault Sirius or find what he goes through shameful at all. But it's a lot harder when it's you over anyone else. James is so kind, but at times he doesn't know how to grant himself that same kindness. So, yes, on his worst days, James is ashamed. Sometimes he's even ashamed of his leg, of his nightmares, of his ever-present loneliness that seems to exist in his very bones, even when he's surrounded by the people he loves. He thinks, sadly, that the world is always going to feel a little more lonely without Vanity in it, without Peter, Irene, Matthias, Hodge, Evan. But with Sirius's help, he works on being kinder to himself. He reminds himself that his struggles aren't something to be ashamed of. It's hard, yes, but he's doing his best, and that's something to be proud of. Some days it's easy to believe that, to really feel it. Other days it's nearly impossible to. The bad days are when it's hardest, and it's been a bad day. He's worried it's a bad day for all of them, and he's scared it's going to get worse for Regulus especially. District 9 is going to be another tough one, James is sure. He doesn't need to talk to Regulus to see that it's weighing on him. He's already more tense, more withdrawn, the moment they arrive. This was Evan's district. Emmeline and Sirius greet each other warmly with a hug, and then she makes a point to go directly to Regulus and request rather bluntly to shake his hand. Regulus, already so on edge, doesn't respond or take her hand. Emmeline doesn't seem offended by it. It's towards the evening when they arrive, so they do the speeches first. Regulus clings to James's hand throughout the entire thing. Juniper has a family on her stage, parents and siblings. Evan has no one. His stage is empty. When it's Regulus's turn to speak, he just doesn't. He doesn't step closer to the microphone. He doesn't even open his mouth. His gaze is latched onto the stage where no one stands. He looks a million miles away, like he's not even here. Like maybe he's over there on that stage for Evan, standing in tribute to him, suffering the grief of his loss. The district is quiet, so quiet, and James fumbles through Regulus's portion of the speech for him. When they leave the stage, James has to tug Regulus along, because he resists, still looking back at Evan's empty platform, and James has to give a forceful pull to make Regulus trail after him. They get dinner out of the way with Emmeline and the mayor, which is where they find out that Evan genuinely had no one. He was an only child, and his parents passed away in the same year, when he was only 19. Not that he was ever close to his parents, because apparently it's just a known fact that they were abusive as he grew up. He didn't give them funerals, and he left his childhood home empty and abandoned when he got the chance. He never had friends. Just one. Just Regulus. After the meal, they get to linger a bit in the district before they disembark to travel through the night to District 8. They'll sleep overnight in the train, then start on the rest of the tour tomorrow. Emmeline approaches Regulus to talk to him in front of everyone, completely shameless. "I want to take you somewhere," Eveline informs Regulus, holding his gaze. Sirius says warningly. "He's not really—" "I think Evan would have liked you to see it," Emmeline cuts in, staring right at Regulus. "Of course, you don't have to. I can't make you, but if you're up to it—" "Yes," Regulus murmurs. "I'll go." "Reggie," Sirius starts. "I'll be fine. I'll meet everyone back on the train," Regulus tells him, shaking his head, and then he leaves with Emmeline without pausing to look back. Sirius is clearly worried, but he's right there with Pandora to charm the mayor, while James stands off to the side with Dorcas. They all end up going back to the train, Pandora going to the conductor to let them know to wait, and Dorcas slipping away into her own train car. James sits with Sirius in heavy silence, waiting for Regulus to come back. "He'll be fine," James mumbles eventually, because Sirius is growing more concerned by the minute. Right, but Evan is just a really sore subject for him, Sirius says quietly. Emmeline is lovely, don't get me wrong, but she can be a bit blunt at times, so I just worry. Regulus likes blunt people, James points out. He doesn't like fake things. Sirius glances at him, and his face softens. Hey, I haven't really asked. How are you doing with all of this? With Regulus, I mean. You want to talk about that? James asks warily. If you need to, Sirius says simply. Or just want to. James swallows, looking down at his hands as he fiddles restlessly with his fingers. Do you want to know the worst part about it, Sirius? The absolute worst part of all of this? It's horrible, but there's a part of me that is just so happy to hold his hand, to have him close, even knowing it's just a performance. Of course, I hate it, that it's not a choice, but I can't help it. It's just, I love him, you know? I really do. It's wrong, being even a little bit grateful, I know that, but I'm human, Sirius murmurs, and he gives James a sad smile when he looks up, startled. You're human, James. Of course you're going to be happy about being with someone you love, in any capacity. That's just being human, all right? But the thing is, past all the feelings, you know the reality of it. You're not happy about the circumstances, and you're respectful. That's important, especially to him. It hurts, too, James rasps. I'm not serious. I don't blame him, but sometimes I get so angry because none of this is fair, and I just I want it to be different, and I want to fix it, and I want to try because that's all I know how to do. But I'm so tired most days, and there's a part of me that wishes he could try so I could take a break. And I know that's not right, not fair to him. I know that. James, Sirius interrupts gently, reaching across the table to cover his hand and essentially shut him up. Sighing, Sirius shakes his head. Look, it's all right to feel like that, yeah? Just, I want you to know that he does try in his own way. It's very different from how you do. Not as easy to notice, but he does. And I need you to hear me on this, okay? Okay, James croaks. Sirius nods and holds his gaze. Just like he is under no obligation to do anything, neither are you. You're not required to keep holding on if it's best for you to let go. He wouldn't want you to, and he wouldn't blame you for it. Or if you just need the break, that's okay too. If you need to take a step back, if you need distance, all of that is okay. It's not fair, James whispers, his eyes burning. It's just letting them win, and I don't want to do that. I don't want to give in, Sirius. Maybe maybe it's defiance. Maybe that's what a part of it always was, because I think I'd burn the Hallow down if that would give us the chance we should have gotten to have. I still want that chance, even now. I still love him. I can't just stop. I don't know how. Oh, James, Sirius sighs out, looking rather fond, his lips curling up in the corners. That's not at all what I meant, but it's nice to hear anyway. Really reassuring, as his older brother and whatnot. A bit sappy, honestly, but fuck you, James says with a weak chuckle. I didn't mean you had to give in, as you put it, Sirius tells him. I just mean that you can take your time and you can stop putting pressure on yourself, just like him. You don't expect anything from him, but you expect everything from yourself. You've got to stop that. It's only hurting you. Hypocrite much? James asks wryly. Don't you start. We're not talking about me. And don't deflect. Remus taught me to see the signs of that, you know? Drat. Remus's infinite wisdom comes back to bite me again. When you see him, tell him I have suffered for it. I'll be sure to, Sirius says, lips twitching at the corners as his eyes fill with that immediate fondness he always gets whenever Remus comes up in conversation, which is often, because Sirius sometimes never shuts up about him. Frankly, James finds it adorable. But I meant it, what I said. Sighing, James nods. I know, I don't know. I'm scared it's always going to be this way between me and him, because I don't think we'll ever have our chance. Because I don't think we'll ever have our chance for as long as we're still entertaining for the Hallow. And you said it could be a long time, and I don't know the future. It's shit. All this jumping around in time I do, and I never get to jump ahead. Well, we get there when we get there, Sirius mutters with a sigh, patting the back of James's hand in a clear sign of solidarity. James's heart pangs when he remembers that Sirius is enduring an entire year without even getting to see Remus. Time is cruel to him, too. Time is cruel to them all. Regulus likes Emmeline. She's very blunt. She doesn't talk to him like he makes her uneasy, and she doesn't treat him like he's going to break every time she mentions Evan, even if maybe, just a little, he's worried he will. In any case, he doesn't. He actually likes hearing about Evan from her. Emmeline is honest, admitting that they were never friends, and in fact once got into a terrible argument in school when they were both 14. Turns out she and Evan were the same age as Regulus. That ended with her calling Evan a prick and shoving all his textbooks off his desk, to which he retaliated by tripping her when she walked by. They never spoke again after that, not until Emmeline became his mentor, and Regulus is learning that Emmeline has no use for holding back the things she wants to say. She admits that she went right to Evan and told him, before he could even ask, that their past argument when they were children would have no impact on her duties as a mentor. Evan apparently liked that, and pretty much immediately respected her after that. They never became friends. Not really, Emmeline says, but she doesn't deny that she cared for him as a mentor, just the same as she did for Juniper. She isn't scared to say that it had hurt her when they died, and Regulus is grateful to hear it, to know that someone out there other than him hurts for Evan too. Evan got a job tending to the cattle, Emmeline tells him as she walks down a long, winding dirt road with thick red clay with a smattering of dust that stirs in the heated breeze. It makes Regulus want to cough, but he refrains, walking beside her with his hands stuffed in his pockets. It's good, honest work, I suppose, if you're into that sort of thing. I don't really think Evan was, but he was allowed to live in the top part of the barn on the farm. The barn? Regulus echoes incredulously. Emmeline shrugs. It was his choice, rather than going back home, in any case. He really spruced the place up. It was tidier than my house, and I have cleaners that come by twice a month. All of his things have been discarded or donated now, but the real reason I'm bringing you here isn't because of anything he actually owned. See, there was something everyone knew about Evan Rosier, and it was that he loved to climb. That's the real reason he got this job. I'm not following, Regulus admits. When we were all kids, really little, we'd come play out on the fields here. It never bothered the moo-moos. Sorry, the what? The moo-moos. Cows. Emmeline shoots him an odd look, like he's the strange one. What the fuck do you call them? Cows, Regulus says slowly, bewildered. How dull, Emmeline murmurs. Well, in District 9 we call them moo-moos, and Evan did too. Anyway, when we were kids, we'd come running out here after school, and the moo-moos didn't mind, so the owners of the farm didn't care much either. They had kids, lost all 3 to the games over the years, a pretty hard loss, but that's besides the point. The point is, we all came out here, but Evan? He didn't come out here to play, he came out here to climb. Well, no wonder he didn't have friends, Regulus says wryly, and Emmeline snorts, her lips twitching. He can almost see Evan's grin in his head. It becomes apparent what Emmeline is talking about when they finally break past the fields, because the property is lined with trees all the way around. Regulus isn't surprised at all that Emmeline is leading him to the tallest one. This was his favorite tree, Emmeline announces when they come to a stop in front of it. Everyone knew it. We all thought he was fucking mental to love it so much, and he climbed it practically every day. I came out here once, about a year ago now, not too long before his name was called, and that's where he was, just perched in the tree, throwing acorns and swinging his legs, looking pleased as pie to be right where he was. Regulus stares at the tree. It's alarmingly tall, and the first branch isn't low enough to be in range to just swing up on it, meaning Evan, the fucking lunatic, hauled himself up using the cavities of the trees, or the random mounds in the bark that serve as footholds. When Regulus tips his head back, he half expects to find Evan sitting in a branch above them, grinning down at them from up high. He's not there. He's never there. Regulus can picture it, though, in startling clarity. In fairness, he's been seeing Evan in trees since he met him, and now he sees it often in his dreams. They talk a lot, him and Evan, or Evan's ghost. Regulus tells him secrets that he never told another soul. Evan is his best friend, so why shouldn't he? It's strange the way grief takes shape in people, different for everyone. For Regulus, after so many conversations with Evan in his dreams, the sting of losing him has almost become gentle. It hits him worse on some days compared to others. Most of the time it doesn't feel so heavy, his grief. Really, he just misses Evan, and the way he copes with that are his dreams, he thinks. They always turn into nightmares by the end, but before that, he cherishes those moments where Evan is just chatting with him in ridiculous, convoluted metaphors as advice for all the problems in his life that Regulus does admittedly ignore most of the time. Evan is always talking about the view, about climbing to that view, getting to it, and that view is always, inevitably, Sirius and James every fucking time. Regulus never moves from the branch, and it always breaks. But the view? Evan lives and dies by the promise that the view is worth it. What was Evan's view? This was his favorite tree, ergo this was his favorite view. Regulus heaves a sigh. I have to climb it. The tree? Emmeline asks, startled. Unfortunately, Regulus mutters, grimacing. He glances over at her, but she just shrugs and sweeps her hand out in the universal gesture of, be my guest. Aren't you afraid of heights? Emmeline muses as he approaches the tree very cautiously. No, Regulus snaps defensively, then pauses and kicks lightly at the base of the tree. In a mumble, he confesses, yes. Emmeline coughs. You'll be able to get back down, right? Without falling, I mean. Because I don't fancy Sirius having a go at me for letting his baby brother climb a tree and get stuck, or worse, fall and break his neck. Thank you, Emmeline, for making me feel better about this decision, Regulus says flatly. I try, Emmeline replies, amused. No, but genuinely, should I go get a ladder or something? That feels like cheating. Well, who's going to know? Evan is going to give me so much shit for this the next time I see him in my dreams, Regulus thinks, precisely 5 seconds before he looks over at Emmeline and mumbles, A ladder, you said? Emmeline grins. 15 minutes later, Regulus is cheating on tree climbing, which rather ridiculously makes him feel mildly guilty, but he's very sure that that's the only way he's getting up in this tree. Emmeline holds the ladder for him, keeping it steady, and he's still uneasy the higher he goes. It doesn't go as high as he needs it to. He can see the tallest branch above him, and he knows for a fact that's where Evan would have gone every time, because it's the last place Regulus wants to be. He's wisely not looking down to see how far down Emmeline is right now, and he spends probably 5 minutes at the top of the ladder just clinging to it. Regulus? Emmeline calls up. Just give me a minute, Regulus calls back down, taking a steadying breath as he reaches out and places his hand on the branch. Under his breath, he mutters, Evan, you fucker. If this kills me, well, maybe that's karma, right. Okay. So Regulus coaxes himself off the ladder, bitching at Evan the entire time, even though he's not there. Something about it soothes him. He can hear Evan's voice in his head like an echo, laughing at him, insulting him, and encouraging him the entire way. Eventually, Regulus is perched on the branch, feeling so stiff that he's pretty sure he'd drop like a stone to the ground if he so much as tipped to one side too much. Next, Regulus is supposed to stand up and climb higher, climb to that top branch, climb to the view that Evan climbed for every day. Evan deserves that. Regulus can do that for him, after all that Evan did for him, and maybe, just once, he can feel Evan's presence somewhere other than his dreams. All he has to do is climb. Regulus doesn't move. As much as he tries, as hard as he wills himself to do it, Regulus can't get his body to unlock. He begs himself, he berates himself, he starts and stops over and over. He starts shaking, and his frustration manages to climb higher within him, and then he's suddenly crying very, very hard. Regulus turns his head away and covers his mouth, squeezing his eyes shut and crying silently. The branch is sturdy under him, and it does not break. He goes no higher. When he chokes out an apology, Evan isn't there to accept it. A bit later, Regulus takes the ladder back down, his eyes gritty and his chest feeling more hollow than ever. If Emmeline heard his breakdown or noticed that he cried, she doesn't mention it. She puts away the ladder, then walks him all the way back to the train. "Reggie, what happened? Are you all right?" Sirius blurts out the moment Regulus enters the compartment. "Fine, we can go now. There's nothing for me here," Regulus rasps, then ducks his head and goes to his train car, not looking at anyone on the way. No one bothers him that night, for which he's grateful. Even when the train starts moving, Regulus is left to his own devices. He sees James, Sirius, and Pandora file to their own rooms eventually, their voices murmuring on the way past. Dorcas must already be in bed. Regulus turns over and tries to sleep. He doesn't manage to do that either. It's clearly a bad night, and usually he has Barty to help him with that, or he just doesn't sleep. But tonight Regulus really wants to. A part of him is afraid to, but another part of him is desperate to see Evan in his dreams and apologize, because he tried. He really did, but he couldn't do it, and he needs Evan to know. Evan is dead, Regulus's brain reminds him. He doesn't know anything anymore. All he knew was that no one thought to look up, and you proved him wrong. Why? Why would you do that? He had no one, no family, no friends, just you, and you dragged him down. You drag everyone down because you don't know how to climb. What the fuck is wrong with you? Regulus doesn't know. Too much is wrong with him. So much that he isn't sure where to start. The night ticks on. The train doesn't rattle. It rides smoothly, like a cloud on tracks. Regulus tries to sleep, but he can't, and it's making him restless. As the hours drag by, the shadows in the corner of the room start to take shape, and the fear starts to sink into him like the cold, ruthless hands from the river. He's so close to being paralyzed from panic in his bed, his heart racing and the memories coming to get him. Gasping, Regulus bolts up from the bed and practically dives for the door, darting out into the aisle between rooms. It's as quiet and dim out here as it was in his room, so he's still shaken. He swallows, staring at the room across from him. It's Dorcas's. Next to hers is Pandora's. Across from Pandora's is Sirius's, next to Regulus's. And on the other side is James's. All these options, some wiser than others. And yet Regulus slides open James's door very carefully just a few minutes later, slipping inside without making a sound. James isn't asleep, though, but he does look very sleepy, like he's dangerously close to drifting off. He blinks at Regulus as if he's not entirely sure that he's there. Regulus doesn't speak or move, just standing there and feeling so very small. "Reg?" James mumbles cautiously. I'm sorry to bother you," Regulus croaks, swallowing past the lump in his throat. "Could I, would it be all right if I slept with you tonight?" James doesn't immediately respond. For a long moment, he's just staring at Regulus with his eyebrows furrowed, lips pressed into a thin line. It's at this precise moment that Regulus realizes that some part of him expected James to instantly agree in that earnest way of his, because James always has. But that's clearly not the case anymore, and Regulus can't even blame him. It's incredibly selfish of Regulus to come here, demanding comfort and security from James when he offers absolutely nothing in return, not even the simple courtesy of not ignoring him. They're in this together. They've been through all of it together, and Regulus has only repaid James's reliability with indifference and distance. He doesn't mean to be cruel. He wishes he didn't need James as much as he does, especially when he can't figure out how to give him what he deserves. He failed. James needs better from him, and just like he knew he would, Regulus failed to give it to him. But Regulus is here, and he's internally pleading for James not to refuse him now. He wouldn't blame James if he did, if he needed his space, if he needed distance, too. This is hurting him, all of it. Regulus knows that. He asks for too much from James, when James asks for nothing from him. I'm going to lose him, Regulus thinks, the realization hitting him at full force, and it's like having his heart broken all over again. I'm already losing him, Regulus thinks next, and it sends a fresh wave of panic through him. The worst part is, he's never really had James at all. James exhales a quiet sigh, reaching over to throw his cover back, shaking his head slightly as he says, "Come on, then." "I shouldn't have asked," Regulus croaks. "Probably not, but you did," James replies simply, patting the bed beside him. "It's fine, Regulus." "Is it?" Regulus murmurs. "It'll have to be," is James's response as he lays back, and the inviting curve of his body, the memory of his warmth and how it feels to be in his arms, is a temptation Regulus is far too weak to resist, especially now. "I'm sorry," Regulus whispers as he pads over and slips right into the bed next to James, feeling safe the moment that he's there, like he always has. It's different at night, when he's trying to sleep. Touch always is. He isn't sure why it's bearable now, but isn't any other time. Right now, he doesn't care. "I've had a really bad day, so anything I say to you won't be nice, I don't think, and I'll just regret it later," James informs him, curling his arm up and around Regulus's shoulders. Regulus swallows and tucks himself closer, practically embedding himself into James's side and the curl of his arms, hiding his face as he mumbles, "Are you angry at me?" "Regulus," James says, his voice strained. "Please don't be angry at me," Regulus rasps, his voice going wobbly and cracking in the middle against his will. "I really fucking hate it when you're angry at me." James takes a deep breath, holds it, then blows it out explosively, and releases a groan as he turns slightly and gently bangs his head against Regulus's shoulder. "Oh, don't do that. Come on, that's not fair. You sound so sad." "I am sad," Regulus admits. "Oh, fuck off," James complains. "This is emotional manipulation. I will not fold." "I'm not asking you to. That's not what I'm trying to do. I came here because I've also had a very bad day, and I can't sleep. But you make me feel—" Regulus trails off, struggling for a moment, because it's so vulnerable. But after everything, he can admit this to James. He's going to, because James should know. He deserves to hear it. "You make me feel safe, that's all. That's why I'm here." "All right, I'm folding," James declares with another sigh. Then he gives a wary chuckle, sounding tired, even as he wraps his arms more firmly around Regulus and holds him closer. Regulus probably shouldn't feel smug about that, but he does. He can't help it. A tiny smile curves his mouth, pleased, and he hides it against James's shoulder. They're all tangled up together like this, their legs entwined and their arms wrapped around each other, with basically no space between them. It feels so good, so safe. Regulus's eyes flutter shut as a soft sigh escapes him, everything in him settling down all at once. Oh, he's missed this. James is so warm. He's so warm. He smells good, too, and Regulus is lost to sensation and the steady pulse of, "I miss you, I miss you, I miss you," and "I'm so happy to be home. I've wanted to come home for so long. Please don't make me leave." They lay there, warm and wrapped up together, and Regulus is more settled than he has been in a long time. He breathes in and out, listening to James doing the same, feeling his steady heartbeat against him, strong and alive. So alive. Regulus is so grateful that James is alive. It's the last thing he remembers thinking, and then he remembers nothing, because he sleeps. He doesn't dream. He won't see Evan in his dreams again for a long, long time.